report. Any discussion? Any discussion? If there's no discussion, someone move, please. Alderman Thomas, put the item. Anyone against? Item's carried. That's the way I like things. City of Hobart financial hardship policy. Any comments? There's no comments. Move the recommendation, Deputy.
I've got,
I can't hear
yeah,
you.
I've got can you hear me now, Chairman?
Sorry, still can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Now we can. Now we can. Put your sound up.
I don't know how to do that. Okay, so I'm just curious as to, given that we've spent only 10% of this, I'm just through you to the General Manager, that's really a small portion, and I wonder whether we need to reserve 4.6 million in the event of, given, is 4 million in the right ballpark, 4.6 in the right ballpark, given we've only spent 10%?
Em, can you tell Luke to turn his picture off on the screen, please? Just sound.
Tim, where are you?
Hello.
We can't see you, but we can hear you, Tim.
Am I able to answer the question, Chairman? Or
yes, Mr. General Manager, you can.
Look, it's a good question from the Deputy Chairman. We made some assumptions when putting the budget together that, and I think we did discuss those assumptions with the council, that we had some science behind the $4.6 million allocation for rate remissions in 2021. But pleasingly, it is a lot lower than what we thought. But to answer the Deputy's question, I think it's probably a little bit early in the process, Chairman. We've had the second instalment of the rates, as you know, on the 15th of November. We've got two further instalments to come on the 15th of February and the 15th of April next year. I suppose we still remain nervous about changing that assumption in the absence of knowing what's going to happen with COVID. Clearly we're comforted by the fact that hopefully a vaccine will be rolled out early in 2021, but I think my conservative advice at the moment would be that you shouldn't be adjusting that $4.6 million figure until we've got a clear line of sight to the finish line. You don't have to be Einstein to contemplate, if we did have a COVID outbreak, what the impact might be on remission applications in the first half of 21. So my strong advice at this stage, Chairman, is keep the 4.6 in place until we've got a clear line of sight through to the 30th of June.
Okay, you happy with that, Deputy?
Yes, yeah, and I'll move this one as well.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
Oh, can I just say,
Lord Mayor?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty, I'm quite nervous about just, well, not nervous. What's the better word? Is, our own budget is under quite a lot of strain. We've still got incredible limits on replacing staff, and the staff are under stress, and our own projects are impacted. So I'm a bit. I always thought we were providing this this support for the 6-month period of the first part of the financial year. So I was quite surprised that it goes for the whole year. Can I ask whether there's any other council in the state or in the country still providing remissions?
General Manager.
Look, I know Launceston provided a 12-month
one-off, yeah.
First up, straight up. Look, I don't know, Chairman, through you, whether or not Ms McDonnell has any advice on what other councils are doing through her connections with her cohort.
Thank you. No, we don't have any up-to-date information on what other councils are doing, but I am aware that some of the other Tasmanian councils have had financial hardship assistance policies similar to ours, and I haven't received advice that they've ceased providing any of that support at this stage.
But I think very few of them had remissions. They all had postponements and deferrals. It's my understanding.
Through you,
Chairman,
Chair. Through you, Chair,
Yep.
there was a variety of different support options provided by other Tasmanian councils.
Just to add to that too, Chairman, we're only contemplating in this recommendation to extend the current policy again to March 21, which obviously we'd bring it back to council at that point for a review at that point again.
Okay, I might ask a question on notice about the other.
Okay, I think Alderman Sexton, yes, you're next.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Look, I support the Lord Mayor's concerns about just continuing to roll this out. So I'm happy enough with the current extension, but I think my personal opinion is unless we've got a severe outbreak between now and the 31st of March, then come the 31st of March, we end it. We're hearing that, I know that it's not necessarily across the board, but we're hearing that a lot of the businesses that we were aiming to support are in a position to bounce back. We hope that Mona Foma is going to be a strong influence there. We hope that they will continue to improve between now and the end of March. But as the Lord Mayor said, we're no better off than they are, and in many cases we're worse off. So, because as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, local government didn't have access to JobKeeper. Is that right? So many of these businesses
Absolutely.
have had access to JobKeeper, and that's been a lifesaver for them. Now, I know that's winding back, but the hope is, and the expectation is, that for many of the businesses that for which JobSeeker is winding back, their business will wind up. We also know that there are a number of zombie companies, and those zombie companies will go out of business regardless of what happens, whether the economy comes back or not, because they were on death's door anyway. And we don't want to be providing subsidies to them in an ongoing way when they've got no hope of surviving anyway. So I know that sounds a bit harsh, but at the end of the day, our responsibility is primarily to our ratepayers. That is what our primary responsibility is. And I think we've been more generous than pretty much any other city in the entire country, is my understanding, in terms of these remissions. So come March, I'll certainly, unless there's been a massive outbreak that's completely uncontrolled, I will be recommending or supporting any motion to end the remission. I don't mind postponements, I don't mind deferrals, I don't mind payment plans. That can go on for as long as necessary, but the remissions will have to stop come March, in my opinion. Thanks.
Look, may I just, look, the Lord Mayor and yourself have raised these concerns. I actually noticed the Deputy sort of shaking her head in support. If I'm wrong, Deputy, please let me know. Maybe it might be best, and just putting this as a suggestion, we're saying here that it be further reviewed in March 2021. To me, that sends a message to our ratepayers that, oh, you know, we're going to continue it till then review it, and maybe continue it. Maybe the wording should be changed that gives more clarity to a lot of people that that you will cease in March 2021 and reviewed should the need arise. That way there, I think it's sort of in line with the concerns raised by a number of elected members, and I think it also sends more of a message to our ratepayers that, you know, we think we're going to most likely stop it in March, but should the need arise, we can review it. Now, I'm throwing that in for debate and discussion, but it's up to the committee to make that decision. I think personally, if I was a person who's been impacted, which I have been, but was going to be looking at it, I'd be reading that saying, well, you know, by March 2021, the council's going to most likely stop this, but the way it reads, it doesn't read that way.
Well, Chairman, I'm very happy to do whatever is necessary. So somebody's moved it, haven't they?
Yeah. I've moved
The
it.
deputy moved it, but the deputy can
I'm happy
move
to
it.
move an amendment. I'm happy to move an amendment in line with what you've suggested, that the remissions, rates remissions cease as of March 2021, subject to the situation, the current situation with COVID-19, or excluding
Look, I use the words to be reviewed if need be, and I just think
to be reviewed if necessary. Will be
necessary.
March
Yeah.
2021 and reviewed if necessary.
Okay, just a second. Look, deputy first, then Alderman Thomas, please. Okay.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to have that as the motion without an amendment. That's fine. But it goes back to the issue of, you know, having 4.6 million less 400,000 sitting there. So can we add a clause? I suggest that we add a clause to reinvest that, or whatever we need to do with that money to use it, because sure enough, you know, like, there is not likely to be $4 million over the next 3 or 4 months to be spent. So, General Manager, what's your suggestion there?
Well, the 4.6 million is factored into the anticipated deficit that we will have at 30th of June. So there's one or two ways you can look at it. You can spend the 4.6 million or the saving and keep your deficit high, or you can reduce the deficit. I think the accountant in us would say you should reduce the deficit, but
Exactly right.
The less deficit we have, the less liability you're creating for future generations. So that would be my advice. However, if you wanted to add something in, it'd be reviewed at the time, then I'll be comfortable with that as well, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll make a comment on that after Alderman Thomas has spoken.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, I'm not uncomfortable with the March idea, but all the signs do appear to be pointing in the right direction, notwithstanding that there is this prediction that when JobSeeker is taken off, that there'll be quite a bit of distress out there, businesses that have been surviving on that for their staff level. But I understood the General Manager was considering a mid-term or mid-financial year budget. I would have thought that rather than go all the way through to March, Alderman Sexton and the Deputy, that we would consider reviewing this at the time of the budget review, because you've obviously haven't had a big call on it for whatever reason, and I think leaving it past December might not be necessary, and particularly I'd like to see it factored, taken off, or most of it taken off, in part of the mid-year budget presentation to us, which I'm assuming will be in January.
More likely to be early February, Jim.
Well, with that, I suppose it makes a bit of it doesn't make a lot of sense to play around if we've got it set till March. But I don't think I would have, if I was putting it forward, I would have put the end of December, not the end of March, given the small.
Thank you, Alderman Thomas. Look, I'll put my business hat on. Look, Deputy, I understand what you're saying about the money. As far as I'm concerned, let it sit there. If we don't need it, we need to get rid of the bottom line in this council, and it's not about just using it to spending. To my point of view, we need to reduce debt, and that's my focus. So I think it just stays there for the moment, and if we don't use it, we use it to reduce debt. So I think it can wait, Deputy. I don't think it's something urgent. General Manager, do you think it's urgent that we need to do something with it?
Look, I don't think it's urgent, Chairman. And I think if you hook yourself into the item 2 ahead, we are saying that the deficit situation has got worse since the budget. So,
Okay. Anyway, we've got the motion by the deputy. Deputy, do you still want to proceed with an amendment? It's totally up to you, but I'm supporting it.
Well, I mean, it is to pay down the debt. You know, that would be it. But I mean, if we're, you know, I'm happy with how it reads as Alderman Sexton has suggested. So that's fine.
Okay, so if you've added that in, Deputy, I won't take it as a amendment, Alderman Sexton. So I'll put the motion with the added wording. At least that way, there we're giving some clear direction to our ratepayers. Anyone against the motion as amended? No one against. The item's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, 6.4 financial report as of the 30th of September. Anyone want? Alderman Sexton, looks like you're going first.
Look, all I wanted to do was just ask about the community support package details to be listed in the annual report. I know we've made a decision about the remissions, that it's only above 4,000, but there are a number of the community support package details. There's a number of quite large amounts of money there that have been given out in grants. And I'm not sure whether this committee has seen a list of those grants yet that have been provided under the community support package details that are listed in the financial statements for the year ended 30th of June, because it'd be interesting to see that. And also, I'm wondering whether we will see a copy of the annual report before it goes to the Auditor General. Do we normally do that?
General Manager?
Not the annual report per se, Chairman. You do get to see it. Well, obviously, it's on the agenda tonight, the financials.
Yeah.
Look, just to answer that question, I might defer to Mr. Short, Chairman, just to give us an update on those grants as to, Tim, do you know if they've been to committee, or you have to fill us in?
Chairman, through you, the grants that there's two sets of grants in terms of approvals. So there are those that are approved by the council, committee and council, and those that are approved under delegation by the General Manager. So in terms of the statements that are before you, so council itself will have seen those ones that have been approved by the council. Those that are approved under delegation by the General Manager are always reported up through CCEC. At the relevant intervals after that approval has occurred. So they are then listed in the annual report in full, but they don't, as a normal rule, come to the Finance Committee for noting. They generally go through CCEC.
Okay, community development, you mean? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
so that's why we haven't said it. Okay, because I'm just wondering which committee would be responsible for ensuring that Section 77 of the Local Government Act has been met. Would that be the Finance Committee, or would that be Community Development under Grants and Benefits?
General Manager? Can't hear you.
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Jim, I unmuted. I think Lara has the answer to that question, Chairman.
Lara?
Thank you. Yes, through you, Chair. We provide a quarterly report of all grants and benefits that have been approved and provided on a quarterly basis. We did put the one up that will go into the annual report. That would have gone up to Finance and Governance Committee in either August or September. In relation to whether we aggregate these grants, particularly these COVID grants, where we have a policy, of course, a council policy, and the idea is to individualise the grants unless the policy says that we should aggregate them.
Yeah. Okay, so that means they will be individually reported. That's what you're telling me, that we as the Finance Committee may have already seen the grants that are, because obviously there are only grants prior to 30th of June 2019.
Through you, Chair. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so most of the COVID grants we won't have it won't be in this, but those that are will be. So that's reassuring. Thank you. Oh,
Thank
and
you.
also just one final question. The Auditor General did say he was awaiting the final draft of the Council's annual report. Through you to the General Manager, have we sent it off yet, or is it about to go?
When did he say that, Chairman?
In his letter, there was Auditor General 19th of November said that he's awaiting the final draft of Council's annual report.
He may well be, Chairman, because we're waiting the final results of his financial statements. So
okay, yeah. Rod
Yes.
Whitehead signed that on the 19th of November, saying, yeah, could you please?
I'll be more than happy to send the Auditor General our annual report, Chairman, once the Council signed off on the financial statements. We include them in the annual report and we then distribute the annual report.
Yeah, he says, please will you forward to me a copy of the final draft of the Council's annual report for review by my staff prior to its publication. That's all he's asked.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean immediately, but
No, due course, Chairman.
yeah. Okay, thanks, Chairman.
Okay, we all fine?
Well, I think we're on the wrong item, actually.
Deputy.
I think we're on the wrong item, haven't we? Are we meant to be doing 6.4 financial report?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like Alderman Sexton's talking about 6.5.
Okay, all right. I'm confused, sorry. Okay, Alderman Sexton, we're on 6.4. Okay, anything else on 6.4? Nothing? Who's moved it? Alderman Thomas has moved it. I'll put the, anyone against? Okay, we're on the 6.5, yeah. Well, we're all confused. Okay, I think even the General Manager's confused.
Well, no, he probably wasn't. It was probably me. But anyway, you've answered my questions relating to 6.5.
5, okay, no worries. Okay, anyone going to move the recommendation on 6.5? Alderman Thomas, Deputy, you got anything to say?
Yeah, just I mean, again, just questions around reducing that debt and when we get to the deficit, when we get to the pointy end, how do you think we're travelling, General Manager?
How do I think we're travelling at this point in time, Chairman? Not as well as we would have hoped. Look, talking to the previous item, which was 9.4, I did make the point in the report that we budgeted for a $11.8 million deficit. We're now running at a $12.46 million deficit, so we've got worse. But speaking to the item which is in front of us, which is 6.5 in our financial statements, all year we were talking about a deficit of circa 10 million. I think it's a credit to the council and the officers that the deficit has come in at 7.127, which is some $2.5 million less than what we were predicting all year with the impact of COVID. And I think, Chairman, probably the underlying reason for that is that we have been able to strip out some costs from the underlying result due to the COVID, which the Auditor General came up with a definition for COVID-related expenses. So that was able to be removed from our bottom line. So I think to answer the Deputy's comment, Chairman, I think the results to the 30th of June are a lot better than what we were predicting all year in the height of the COVID issue. I'm not as comfortable with the financial performance to the 30th of September 2020 because some of the fundamentals, particularly around revenue, have not returned to pre-COVID levels or to budget levels. So I hope that answers your question, Deputy. I still think, Chairman, all roads lead to the 31st of December budget variation process and the mini budget process that Alderman Thomas alluded to. I think that's the time for the council to have a serious conversation about its financial position post-COVID.
Okay. Any other debate? Any other discussion? No other discussion. I'll move by the Deputy. Put the item. Oh no, sorry, Alderman Thomas. Sorry, Alderman Thomas. No one against. Item's carried. Thank you. We go to 6.6. 6.6. Former Magistrates Court summons write-off. Anyone want to speak? Is that you, Alderman Sexton? You're on speaker.
Yeah, sorry. It's just all a bit weird, isn't it? Going back as far as 2007 or 2008 or whatever it was. I don't fully understand why those things weren't written off years ago. I'm assuming it was because, well, I don't know actually. So maybe through you to the General Manager.
General Manager.
It's a good question, Chairman. Maybe Mr. Carr might be able to give a fairly detailed explanation of this. So maybe I'll defer to him, Chairman, and then make some comments after that.
Through you, Chair, the reason this is coming now is that we've reached the limit of a statute to be able to collect bad debts, if you like, on these old parking infringements. And so the 2008 date is important. Prior to that, Council underwent a very manual process directly through the court system on a weekly and monthly basis. And following that date, the new monetary penalties system was put in place, and that streamlined the process, and any bad debts were essentially passed off to Tasmanian Collection Service, at which point we saw a dramatic increase in the ability of council to collect those fines. Prior to 2008, everything that was outstanding at that point in time was bundled up, passed on to TCS, and they collected what they could, and the rest has sort of remained as an impairment against our receivables since that time. It doesn't, writing this off doesn't actually have any material effect on our accounts. If anything, it's a slight improvement, because the impairment that has existed against our receivables would be a negative drain on that. So it's an accounting activity to clean up the books, and the primary reason is the statute limitation.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Any other questions?
I'm
Mr. Alderman Thomas.
Yeah, I'm assuming, Chair, that a fair degree of that, fair percentage of those fines are interstate fines, or fines where there was a problem in getting the registered vehicle ownership details from the state government records. That's usually the thing trotted out. So is that correct, Mr. Carr? Because it's a huge amount, but I think it probably are those two factors considerably part of the story.
Through you, Chair, yes, that is the case. Look, there's a real mixed bag in there, but a lot of the process, and the reason MPES was put in place was because it became impossible for council to actually do a trace on those people who had the fines. And I would also just draw the attention to the fact that it is a large number, but that's a large number over 12 years. And so it only relates to about 1 or 2 infringements a week. It's just a big number over a long period of time.
Thank you. Councillor Coates, you had your hand up. You got back down? Or?
Yeah, I was going to just look, as I was reading through it, just wanted to get an understanding. Obviously, back in 2008, they introduced this monetary penalties enforcement service, but the process now, I mean, this is doing everything from 2008 backwards, but do we now have a process where it hits a certain point, and then, you know, obviously taking into account we don't run a collection agency, it's essentially sold off to TCS, or do they just collect it on our behalf and we get what we get, and they obviously collect a like a royalty or a commission out of whatever they collect out of that?
Through you, Chair, yes, there's a formal process in place now, has been for a number of years, that the following, well, first of all, if the infringements aren't challenged, they don't go to court. not all infringements go to court. Most of them are just paid. We very rarely find ourselves in court at that sort of end of the spectrum. But those that do, and any outstanding fines, which sort of, go through a first notice, second notice, final notice, they're then passed on to TCS, and the debt is essentially sold, and they take a fee.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Any other questions? No other questions? Who's moved this one? I've lost track on this one. No one's moved it, so can someone move it, please? Alderman Thomas. Anyone against? No one against. Items carried. Thank you. 6.7. Outstanding long-term parking debts. This is the one I think.
Chairman.
Moved by Alderman Sexton. No discussion. Okay, I'll put anyone against. Items carried. Okay. Committee status report. Someone move to receive a note, please. Alderman Sexton. Anyone against? No one against. Items carried. Questions without notice. I think the Deputy or the Lord Mayor had one. No? No questions without notice? Okay, so someone move to go into close, please.